She laughed in my face and said, "You're nothing to me, I only married you because of my parents. I didn't beg or fight. I just left." But when she saw me again, standing next to her father as his new business partner, her smile vanished. Subscribe, like, comment and watch till the ending to share this interesting story to family and friends. The morning sunlight slipped through the white curtains of the Cole residence, soft and warm, but inside the house the air was cold, emotionally cold. Daniel stood by the stove, stirring eggs while the coffee machine hissed quietly beside him. He had done this every morning since their wedding, hoping that one day Vanessa might smile when she came down the stairs. She did come down, but with that familiar expression of indifference. Her silk robe brushed the marble floor as she scrolled through her phone, ignoring the aroma of breakfast. "Good morning," Daniel said, forcing a hopeful smile. She didn't look up. "Morning," she muttered flatly, sitting at the table. He placed the plate gently in front of her. "I made your favorite, scrambled eggs with cheese." Vanessa lifted her eyes briefly. "Daniel, stop acting like this is some perfect marriage," she said, setting her phone aside. "It's not." His hands froze slightly, the spatula still in his grip. "I'm not acting," he said quietly. "I'm trying." She laughed bitterly. "Trying for what? To make me fall in love with you? I married you because my parents pressured me, Daniel. Not because I wanted to." The words hit him like a slow, suffocating wave. He stood there, still, absorbing every syllable. His chest felt heavy, but he didn't let it show. "I see," he said after a moment. "So that's how you really feel." Vanessa crossed her arms. "Don't make it sound dramatic. You're a good man, but not my kind. We come from different worlds. Let's just live quietly and not pretend." He nodded, forcing composure, though inside something broke. "Understood." The rest of breakfast passed in silence. Only the faint sound of utensils touching plates filled the air. When she left for work, her perfume lingered longer than her presence. That evening, Daniel waited for her. Hours passed. Midnight came, and so did Vanessa. Her makeup was smudged, her laughter careless. He could smell the faint trace of a man's cologne. "You're late," he said, not accusingly, just stating a fact. She shrugged, tossing her purse on the couch. "I had dinner with friends." "Don't start." "I didn't ask where you were," he said quietly. "I only said you're late." She rolled her eyes. "This is why I can't stand this, your calmness, your politeness. You're too predictable, Daniel." He smiled sadly. "And yet, I thought being calm was better than being cruel." Vanessa turned away, not replying. She went upstairs, leaving him alone in the dim living room. Daniel sat down, staring at the untouched coffee cup he had prepared hours ago. His heart ached, but his mind was awakening. In that quiet, lonely room he realized something important. Love couldn't survive where respect was starved. And from that night, he decided, he would no longer beg to be valued. Days turned into weeks, but the silence between Daniel and Vanessa only grew louder. They moved around the house like two strangers occupying the same space. He worked long hours not just to distract himself, but because being home felt like standing in a room where love had suffocated. Vanessa, on the other hand, embraced her social life again. Cocktail nights, luxury brunches, charity events. Daniel never stopped her. He simply withdrew, quietly folding the remnants of his hope into the corners of his heart. At first, Vanessa took his silence as weakness. But Daniel wasn't silent out of helplessness. He was observing, thinking, deciding. One evening, Vanessa's friends came over, two elegantly dressed women who giggled and whispered as Daniel entered the living room. He greeted them politely. "Vanessa," one of them smirked, "your husband is such a gentleman. You're lucky." Vanessa laughed, a cold, cutting laugh. "Lucky? Please." Daniel's too serious. No excitement, no ambition to live big. "He's average. But my parents love him, so here we are." Her words sliced through the air like a knife. The guests looked uncomfortable, but Daniel only smiled faintly. "Excuse me," he said quietly, walking out of the room before the humiliation could root deeper. He stood outside under the veranda lights, breathing in the cool night air. The words echoed in his head, average, no ambition, forced marriage. It was in that moment he realized, he had been fighting for something that was already gone. The next morning, Vanessa found him dressed early, suitcase beside the door. "Where are you going?" she asked, slightly alarmed. "Out," he said simply, buttoning his cufflinks. "For how long?" she pressed. He looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in weeks. "Until I remember who I am," he replied calmly. "You don't owe me love, Vanessa, but I can't keep begging for respect." Her expression faltered. You're being dramatic again. He shook his head gently. No. I'm being human. She tried to sound unaffected. So what now? You're leaving because I told the truth? Daniel sighed, picking up his bag. No, I'm leaving because you've forgotten that truth doesn't have to be cruel. He paused, set a folded note on the table and walked toward the door. Vanessa's voice trembled slightly, though she masked it with irritation. Don't make me the villain here, Daniel. He stopped at the door, turned and said softly, You don't have to be the villain, Vanessa. You just chose to be one in my story. The door clicked shut behind him. Vanessa stared at the note for a long time before finally unfolding it. His handwriting was neat and calm. You don't owe me love, Vanessa. But respect is a debt every human owes another. Daniel. Her hands trembled slightly, but pride forced her face back into its usual calm. She tossed the note onto the table, but long after, her eyes kept returning to it. And for the first time the house felt empty. Truly empty. Daniel moved into a modest apartment across town, bare walls, one couch and a laptop on a small wooden desk. It wasn't much, but it felt freeing. For the first time in months, silence didn't hurt, it healed. He poured his energy into his work, staying up late into the night, coding and sketching plans for a startup he had once dreamed about, a software solutions company focused on small business automation. It was something he'd shelved while trying to please Vanessa and her world. Now he had no one to impress. And that freedom became his fuel. At his office job, his manager noticed his quiet efficiency. One afternoon, a project crisis erupted. A client's network system crashed, risking a multi-million-dollar deal. Daniel worked through the night, fixed the issue, and not only saved the contract but improved the system far beyond expectation. When he presented the results the next morning, the board applauded. Among them was Melissa Grant, his project manager, calm, sharp, and empathetic. After the meeting, Melissa approached him. You didn't just save the project, you redefined it. You should start your own company, Daniel. He chuckled softly. Funny. That's what I told myself last night. She smiled. Then let's make it real. I'll back you. I believe in you. Those words hit differently. Not romantic, not exaggerated, just genuine belief. Something he hadn't felt in a long time. Within weeks, they began building CoreLogic systems, working long hours in rented co-working spaces. Melissa handled clients, Daniel handled innovation. Slowly, contracts trickled in, small at first, then bigger. 3 months later, CoreLogic landed a proposal from a mid-tier manufacturing company struggling with digital management. Daniel poured himself into the project, unaware of the irony. The client's parent company was Raymond Group, Vanessa's family business. The initial meeting with the procurement division was straightforward. But when Daniel saw the company letterhead with the Raymond logo, he paused. Melissa noticed. Something wrong? He smiled faintly. No. Just old memories trying to matter again. He didn't flinch. He treated it like any other deal. Professional. Composed. Logical. Weeks passed. CoreLogic's work impressed the Raymond Group's engineers. Word spread. Soon, Daniel's company was invited to present at a major digital restructuring tender. One that Vanessa's father, Mr. Raymond, personally oversaw. Daniel prepared thoroughly but without arrogance. It wasn't about revenge yet. It was about growth, about becoming the version of himself he'd buried under someone else's approval. Late one night, Melissa found him still working. You don't rest, do you? She said, setting a cup of coffee beside him. He smiled tiredly. I guess I'm rebuilding what I lost. She looked at him softly. Maybe you're not rebuilding, Daniel. Maybe you're just finding yourself again. He looked out the window, city lights reflecting in his eyes. Then I hope I like the man I find. He didn't know it yet, but that man, calm and quietly powerful, would soon walk into a room where his past waited to face him. And this time he wouldn't be the one looking down. The day of the presentation arrived. Daniel stood before the mirror, adjusting his tie. There was no nervousness, only focus. Months of work had led to this, the biggest presentation of CoreLogic Systems' short life. Melissa entered the small conference room where they were waiting before being called in. You ready? She asked, handing him a file. He smiled calmly. Ready enough. The door opened. An assistant ushered them toward the main boardroom. The sign on the frosted glass read Raymond Group, Executive Strategy Meeting. For a second, Daniel's steps slowed. Memories, cold breakfasts, silence, those cruel words, flashed through his mind. But his face remained unreadable. He had mastered control. Inside, the boardroom gleamed with polished wood and chrome finishes. Executives sat around the long table, their attention on the projector screen. At the head of the table sat Mr. Raymond, Vanessa's father, silver-haired, authoritative yet kind-eyed. "Mr. Cole," he exclaimed with pleasant surprise as Daniel entered. "My boy, it's been too long. You saved my company once and now you're bidding to help us again." Daniel shook his hand firmly. "It's an honor, sir. Come sit. Let's see what you've built," Mr. Raymond said, motioning for him to begin. As Daniel connected his presentation, the door opened again, and the room shifted. Vanessa walked in. Elegant as ever, dressed in a tailored cream suit, her confidence filled the space. But the moment her eyes landed on Daniel, she froze mid-step. Her face paled. For a split second, the confident woman disappeared, replaced by raw shock. Daniel didn't flinch. "Good morning, Mrs. Raymond," he greeted politely, acknowledging her only as part of the team. She blinked, collecting herself. "Mr. Cole," she managed, forcing composure. Mr. Raymond looked between them, oblivious to the tension. "Oh, you two have met, I presume?" Daniel smiled faintly. "Once or twice." The presentation began. Daniel's voice was steady, persuasive, confident. He spoke about efficiency models, automation strategies, and financial forecasting, his expertise shining through effortlessly. The board members nodded, impressed. Vanessa tried to focus, but every word, every calm gesture of his confidence, made her chest tighten. He looked different. The same man, yet entirely transformed. Polished, poised, self-assured. When the presentation ended, silence hung briefly before the board erupted in applause. Mr. Raymond clapped the loudest. "Incredible work, Daniel. You've outdone yourself. I'd be proud to have you as our partner again." Daniel smiled warmly. "Thank you, sir. I look forward to working together, professionally." He glanced once more at Vanessa, whose eyes met his for a fleeting second. The calm in his gaze was unsettling to her. It wasn't anger nor love. It was peace. And that peace made her uneasy. After the meeting, as Daniel and Melissa walked toward the elevator, Vanessa hurried after them. "Daniel, wait." He stopped, turning slightly. "Yes. I didn't know you'd be here," she said quietly, her tone softer than he remembered. "I didn't plan to surprise anyone," he replied evenly. Her eyes darted nervously. "You've changed." He nodded once. "No, Vanessa. I just stopped waiting for your approval to feel like someone." And with that, he stepped into the elevator, leaving her standing there, speechless, her reflection staring back from the mirrored walls. For the first time, she was the one left behind. The Raymond Group officially announced its partnership with CoreLogic Systems 2 weeks later. Newspapers praised the deal as the future of digital innovation. Daniel's photo appeared in the business section, confident, poised, and smiling beside Mr. Raymond. Vanessa saw it over breakfast. The coffee cup trembled slightly in her hand as she stared at the image. There he was, the man she once dismissed as average, now sitting beside her father, hailed as one of the country's most promising tech leaders. Her mother noticed her silence. "You should be proud, Vanessa. Daniel's success reflects well on our family too." Vanessa forced a smile. "Of course, mother," she murmured, though inside pride and confusion warred. Later that day at the company's joint review meeting, Vanessa found herself face-to-face with Daniel again. He was leading the discussion effortlessly, surrounded by executives hanging on his every word. The confidence she once ridiculed as dull now commanded respect from everyone in the room. When the meeting ended, she approached him cautiously. "Daniel, can we talk?" He paused, polite but distant. "About business?" "No. About us." He hesitated for a moment before replying calmly, "There is no us, Vanessa. There's only what's left of respect, and I'm still deciding if even that should remain." Her throat tightened. "You really have changed." He gave a soft, almost weary smile. "No, I just learned that being underestimated is a gift. It teaches you to rise quietly." Before she could answer, Melissa appeared beside him, holding a file. "Daniel, the board wants your signature before the press release." "Thanks, Melissa," he said, taking the document. Vanessa's eyes flicked toward Melissa, noticing the warmth and ease between them. "She seems close to you," she said, her voice quieter now. Daniel didn't look up. "She respects me. That's closer than anything we ever had." The words stung. She swallowed hard, blinking away the emotion she didn't want to admit. As he walked away with Melissa, Vanessa felt a sharp ache she couldn't define. It wasn't jealousy, it was realization. The man she once saw as beneath her had become everything she pretended to admire in others. confident, respected, and untouchable. That evening, alone in her office, she replayed every moment she had mocked him, every sigh, every insult, every dismissive laugh. And now each one echoed back as regret. When her father entered, he found her staring at Daniel's name on a contract. "I'm proud of that young man," he said warmly. "He's got vision and integrity. You should have treated him better, Vanessa." She looked up sharply, her eyes moist. "You knew?" Mr. Raymond sighed. "Parents know more than you think. I just hoped you'd see what kind of man he was before it was too late." The words hit her harder than she expected. As her father left, she leaned back in her chair, whispering under her breath, "Too late." Outside the glass window, she watched Daniel and Melissa laughing with clients. And for the first time, Vanessa Raymond, who had everything, felt the sting of losing something money could never buy. Vanessa's world began to shift quietly, piece by piece. Her father's approval, once her shield, had turned into silent disappointment. The board trusted Daniel's word more than hers, and the more successful CoreLogic became, the more invisible she felt. Her social life, once glittering with parties and shallow compliments, started to fade too. Friends grew distant, sensing her unease. Even Adrian, the man she'd once thought she loved, had stopped calling. His attention had always been for her status, not her heart. And now that she no longer shined as the perfect heiress, he found someone new. One Friday evening, Vanessa sat alone in her luxury apartment, staring at a table covered in memories she didn't want to face. A wedding photo now dusted over, Daniel's farewell note, creased from being read too many times. Her phone buzzed. It was an internal message from the company's project team. "Mr. Cole will be leading tomorrow's strategy retreat. Attendance is mandatory for all department heads." She almost didn't go, but something inside told her she had to. The next morning, the retreat took place at a serene countryside resort owned by her family's company. Daniel arrived in a charcoal suit, his calm presence commanding quiet respect. Vanessa found herself watching him, not as the man she had married, but as someone entirely new. During the group lunch, she finally approached him. "Daniel," she began, hesitating. "Can we talk privately?" He looked at her for a moment, then nodded. "Of course." They stepped onto the terrace overlooking the gardens. The wind was soft, the air smelled of rain. "I owe you an apology," she said finally, her voice trembling. "Not for the business, for everything. I was cruel, ungrateful, and blind." Daniel said nothing, his eyes calm but unreadable. "I thought love was supposed to look like luxury and excitement," she continued, blinking back tears. "But now I realize it was the way you looked at me every morning even when I ignored you. I destroyed something real." Daniel took a deep breath, his tone steady. "Vanessa, I didn't expect an apology. You don't need to carry guilt for me. I've made peace with what happened." Her lip trembled. "You've really forgiven me?" He nodded. "A long time ago. But forgiveness doesn't mean I can go back." Her eyes glistened. "So that's it? You just move on?" "Yes," he said quietly. "Because moving on isn't about forgetting, it's about freeing yourself from being someone's wound." She looked away, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. "You were never the weak one, Daniel." "I was." He smiled faintly. "No, Vanessa. We were both broken. I just decided to heal." A long silence stretched between them, filled with the sound of rustling leaves. When they returned to the conference, Vanessa stayed quiet, her gaze lowered. For the first time in her life, she didn't want to be seen. And for the first time, Daniel no longer needed to be. The evening glittered with elegance. The Raymond Foundation Charity Gala was the highlight of the business season. Reporters, investors, and social elites filled the grand ballroom of the Crestview Hotel. Gold lights shimmered over chandeliers, and a soft orchestra played in the background. Vanessa stood near the entrance, her beauty as polished as ever. But behind the perfect smile, her heart felt strangely hollow. She had been asked to host part of the event by her father, who wanted to restore the family image. As she mingled with guests, she overheard whispers. "Isn't that the man who saved Raymond Group's digital wing?" "Yes, Daniel Cole. Brilliant strategist. He's speaking tonight." The name froze her in place. "Daniel? Speaking here?" Moments later, the lights dimmed, and the host's voice echoed across the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome one of the evening's keynote speakers, and our foundation's newest strategic partner, Mr. Daniel Cole." The applause was thunderous. Vanessa turned, and there he was, confident in a black tuxedo, every inch of him radiating calm control. He walked onto the stage, greeted the audience with a polite nod, and began to speak. Good evening, everyone. Tonight isn't about business or titles, it's about responsibility. The responsibility to build something meaningful, even when no one believes in you. His eyes briefly met Vanessa's across the crowd. She felt her chest tighten. He continued, when people underestimate you, they give you a gift, the freedom to grow without noise. And one day, they'll see that the person they look down on is the same person they now look up to. The crowd applauded again. Mr. Raymond stood proudly, clapping. Then the next announcement came, a moment that would shatter Vanessa's composure entirely. We're honored to introduce our new board of shareholders for the Raymond Group's digital division. Among them, Mr. Daniel Cole, who now holds a 20% equity partnership. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Even some executives turned to whisper. Vanessa felt the floor tilt beneath her. Her father smiled at Daniel warmly, shaking his hand. Welcome to the family officially, son. The cameras flashed, capturing Daniel's handshake with her father, while Vanessa stood frozen, clutching her glass too tightly. It was more than shock. It was poetic justice. The man she once said was nothing, was now a part owner of everything she had once used to measure her worth. After the announcement, Daniel approached her briefly. You hosted beautifully, he said, his tone kind, almost detached. Daniel. I didn't know, she stammered. He smiled faintly. You weren't supposed to. Some surprises are meant to teach, not to hurt. She stared at him, speechless, her heart breaking in a quiet, private way. He added softly, I didn't do this to get back at you, Vanessa. I just became who I was meant to be, without your shadow blocking the light. And then he walked away, greeted by executives and applause. Vanessa stood still as the music swelled around her, surrounded by people yet utterly alone. That night, for the first time, she truly saw the difference between revenge and redemption. Months passed since the gala and life moved forward, though not equally for everyone. Daniel's company, CoreLogic Systems, thrived beyond expectation. His leadership style, calm, thoughtful, grounded, became the foundation of its success. Investors respected him. Employees admired him. Melissa, now his operations director, remained his closest ally, the quiet anchor who'd believed in him from the start. They often worked late, their conversations flowing easily between business strategies and shared laughter. Their connection wasn't rushed, it was organic, two souls who understood the value of peace over passion. One evening, after finalizing a merger deal, Melissa said softly, you know, for someone who never planned revenge, you pulled off the most poetic one. Daniel smiled faintly. It was never revenge, Melissa. I just grew where I was once buried. She smiled back, eyes warm. Then maybe that's the best kind, success that doesn't shout, it just shines. Across town, Vanessa lived in the same luxury apartment, but it didn't feel luxurious anymore. The walls were too quiet. The mirrors too honest. Since the gala, she had tried to reach out, calls unanswered, messages left unread. Daniel hadn't blocked her, he simply didn't respond. His silence spoke more than words ever could. Her father's pride in Daniel grew with every board meeting. The company's new digital arm soared under his strategic influence, and Mr. Raymond often referred to him as the son I never had. It was a painful irony Vanessa could no longer ignore. One evening, unable to bear the weight of regret any longer, she drove to CoreLogic's headquarters. The receptionist hesitated before announcing her. Daniel was surprised but agreed to see her. When she entered his office, she paused. Everything about the space reflected calm precision. Glass walls, soft lighting, a framed quote on the wall that read, "Respect builds where love once broke." He rose from his desk, expression neutral. Vanessa. She clasped her hands, voice trembling. I'm not here to disrupt your peace. I just wanted to say I'm proud of you. He studied her quietly. There was no resentment in his gaze, only serenity. Thank you, he said gently. That means something even now. She nodded, fighting tears. You were the best thing I never appreciated. I thought I was winning when I pushed you away, but I was just losing quietly. Daniel walked her to the door. We all lose when we stop seeing people for who they are, he said softly. But it's not too late to start respecting yourself again. She paused at the doorway, her voice barely a whisper. Have you moved on? He smiled kindly. I'm learning to love peace more than the past. As she left, the evening sun cast a golden light through the office, warm, calm, final. Outside, Vanessa looked up at the building one last time, whispering, I hope she treats you better than I did. Inside, Daniel turned back to his desk, where Melissa waited with a gentle smile. He exhaled deeply, peace filling the space where pain once lived. Revenge, he thought, was never about making her suffer. It was about becoming someone she could never hurt again. Subscribe, like, comment and share this interesting story.